Hey guys, how is everybody doing? With the release of the Crow remake this past weekend, it is now time for my ranking of all five the Crow movies, all ranked from worst to best. Now, to get this all out of the way, this is not the definitive list. This is not the correct list. This is just my own personal opinion. So let me know how you would rank all five Crow movies down in the comments below if you do have the heart to watch the other Crow movies. But with that all out of the way, let's rank all five Crow movies. We're coming in at number five, and it should be no surprise what my number five is, and that is The Crow Wicked Prayer. I hate this movie. I think this movie is absolute dog shit. I will probably lose my fucking mind if I ever have to see another frame of this movie ever again, and if I am forced to rewatch it, I will probably stab someone in the face who tries to make me rewatch it. And, yeah, that's about it. This movie can suck my white ass. But also, Edward Furlong, really? Fucking Edward Furlong as the cast of The Crow? Really? Coming in at number four is going to be The Crow City of Angels. Now, narratively, I don't think this movie is terrible. I just don't like this movie. Not to where this to me is where this is actually feels like a sequel to the first movie, which is not a very good thing because that is one of those movies I think should have been left alone. But when you get to The Crow City of Angels, this is the movie that I just don't really care for. It's a movie I don't really like. It's kind of forgettable at times to where I actually almost forgot to put it on this list. But as a sequel to that first movie, I do not like this movie whatsoever. It doesn't disrespect Brandon Lee's legacy or anything. It doesn't disrespect the legacy of that first movie, but it just feels just like another version of the first Crow movie because apparently this isn't the original cut of the movie. Apparently, this was a whole different movie at one point. This movie was completely different. This is not what the movie was going to be, but then that asshole that is Harvey Weinstein decided to basically just come in, cut this movie to fucking bits, basically ordered reshoots of for this movie and turned it into a completely different movie and basically just turned it into a carbon copy of the original. Now, would I be interested to see what that original version could have offered? Yeah, there is probably potential there to where this could have been a solid sequel, especially with Sarah, which I hate who they brought back, by the way, which basically ruins that character for me from the first movie. But apparently, in the original script, when she dies at the end, she basically comes back as a woman crow, and apparently might have set up a sequel or didn't set up a sequel. I don't know what the story is, but apparently, once she died, there was going to be she was going to become a woman crow, which is something I'm actually very interested to see. That is something to where if they were to make another crow movie, I want to see that. That is something I am definitely interested in. But this movie, just as a sequel to the original movie, I do not care for it whatsoever. I hated a lot of the decisions they made. Villains, they're not anything to write home about. The only thing I can remember about the villains is that Thomas Jane was jerking off in a booth. That's it. Coming in at number three is going to be the new kid on the block, the Crow remake. Now, I'm not going to defend this movie whatsoever. If you do not like this movie, if you do not care for this movie whatsoever, I will not debate with you. I will not fight with you. I completely understand why a lot of people don't like this movie, but from my viewing experience, I thought the movie was okay. This movie is entirely watchable. I do think this movie is decent and it's entertaining at times. But if I were to judge this movie as a remake to the original Crow, I don't like this movie. I would not love this movie. I would probably have it right at the bottom with The Wicked Prayer. But as just a Crow a readaptation of the original 1989 comic. I think that's when that comic book came out. But as a adaptation of that comic book, of a readaptation of the comic, I do enjoy this movie. It is fine. I don't hate this movie whatsoever. I would understand why some people won't like this movie. I completely understand. I won't deny it. I will not debate with you. But from my own viewing experience, I enjoyed it. It was a fun time at best. It was decent at times, but this is probably one of the more disappointing films of the year for me because I was really looking forward to the movie because I thought there was potential there. I thought there was a potential to not just remake the original, which I never really looked at this movie. Two, I've more looked at it as a readaptation of the comic book. And what they did there, they were decent at, because something that I actually really enjoyed was FK Twigs and Bill Skarsgård's chemistry, to where some people say they didn't really buy into it, they didn't buy the chemistry. Personally, I actually kind of bought it. I thought their chemistry was actually decent, to where when they died, I didn't care because they were just being flat out stupid for not leaving when they just escaped a fucking rehab center. But I thought their chemistry was decent. I didn't hate it. I didn't think there wasn't anything there to where they were actually decent. And Bill Skarsgård, he completely surprised me in the role of Eric, because when I heard that he was going to be the cast of Eric and being the new Crow, I was like, really fucking Pennywise is going to be playing this guy? I don't think he's gonna do a good job. But once he turns into full badass mode towards the end of this movie, he did decent. I'm not gonna lie. I actually kind of enjoyed him in this role. I thought was a pretty good role for him, because he physically looks good for this role. Emotionally, he's decent, and during the action sequences and when he's full badass, he's cool in it. But there is no denying it has its issues with, like, the whole spiritual thing of showing us how the crow gets its powers or whatever. That I did not like whatsoever. I hated that they did that. But I also thought the relationship with Shelly and Eric in this one was okay, I guess. But as a remake, I don't like the movie, but as a readaptation of that comic book, it's fine. Coming in at number two is a movie that actually kind of really surprised me in this franchise, and that is The Crow Salvation. Now, after I watched City of Angels, I did not really look forward to this movie. Or is it City of Prayers? No, it's City of Angels. I kind of just mixed Wicked Prayer and City of Angels together there. But The Crow Salvation, I basically walked in with very low expectations, because after watching City of Angels, I was like, oh, this cannot get any better, I guess. But surprisingly, I really enjoyed this movie. This movie was actually a decent Crow movie. It was a decent time. It was a decent sequel to the original movie, but let's be fair. The Salvation and Wicked Prayer are basically remakes of the original movie. But I actually had a good time with this. I thought Kirsten Dunst in this movie was great. I love seeing her in anything she does, and I just love her in general. But I was seeing her in this movie, and along with the remake, I really loved how violent this one was. I kind of forgot to talk about that about the remake, but the remake's violence is awesome. And in this movie, I really love the violence in this one. It is really toned up. This movie is probably easily the darkest Crow movie. I couldn't speak there for a second, but this is easily the darkest Crow movie in my mind. But I also think the one thing that kind of really holds this down for me is kind of Alex's actor. Now, Alex as the Crow, I actually really enjoy. I thought he's a pretty decent character. He kind of that character and the way the guy performs it kind of brought that charm and charisma like Brandon Lee did in the first one. But his actor, no, his performance wise and emotional wise, he's not there. But charisma and charming wise, he's cool. I think he's great. I think he's a good Crow. I think he's a pretty good Crow. And the whole thing to where they try to hide a twist with the villains, it's very obvious who they are, if you ask me. But The Crow Salvation, I honestly had a good time with this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if I actually see myself rewatching this movie. This is a movie to where I actually wouldn't mind rewatching. This is a Crow movie to where I wouldn't mind rewatching. But it's never going to be a time to where after I finish the original, I'm instantly going to put in this movie. It's never going to be like that. But if I am in a Crow mood and I watch the original, and if I'm still in a Crow mood, I might throw this one on every now and then. It's not bad. It's not great either. It's okay. It's a fun time, decent Crow sequel, and just a decent Crow movie in general. But of course, coming in at number one is the original Crow. I don't even need to explain myself why this is number one. This is one of the most best movies ever made. This is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the best horror thrillers, action movies, whatever criteria you want to put this movie in, it's the greatest of all time in all of them. Romance, dramas, whatever. It's the best in all of them in my mind. It is my favorite comic book movie. It's just one of my favorite movies of all time. Brandon Lee, rest in peace, because this is one of the greatest characters to ever come to life because of that man. And I absolutely love this movie. This is a movie I rewatch constantly. This is just one of my favorite movies in general. I do not need to explain myself why this is number one. And It's gonna take one hell of a fucking movie to dethrone this one from number one because I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and it's a shame to see a movie that is near a masterpiece get very shitty follow-ups because this could criteria a franchise, and I do think there is enough there to where there could be a franchise. But after watching the sequels, no, thank you. But one of the best movies ever made. There's no denying why this is number one. Thank you all so much for watching my ranking of all 5 Crow movies. Let me know what your ranking is down in the comments below if you do have the heart to even watch any of the other sequels. And if you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe to the bell notification so you will get notified for all my latest videos. And of course, until next time, see you in my next video.